This is the first video of our brand new channel where we'll be looking at a wide number of different topics. Anything from incredible tales of heroism and bravery to lists and countdowns of some of the creepiest paranormal clips, stories, and in this case, books that are out there. Check out the channel description for more information about what we'll be covering in upcoming videos. So to start off, here are 7 of the strangest books and grimoires ever written. Now we will have all come across a book in our time, but a grimoire is a wholly different story. A grimoire is a textbook of magic that generally includes spells and incantations, along with instructions on how to create magical objects, such as amulets and talismans. Number 7. The Pika. This is the Latin title of an originally Arabic grimoire, which is a composite text that depicts the details of astrological magic. Now with its somewhat cliched aims of wisdom and enlightenment, the Pika seems to be one of the earliest self-help books out there. But dig a little deeper and you'll soon unearth a much darker side to it. There are those who claim that just being around the book brings strange and unnerving effects, such as weightlessness and the feeling of floating. Its origins and even its author cannot be confirmed, further shrouding it in mystery, though it is generally accepted that it was written by an Arabian. Arabs themselves were considered to be great mages of their time, creating enchantments of immense power and beguiling folk to bend to their will. According to the text, it gives detailed instructions on how to create hatred and sickness within people, whilst also giving direction on how to force love upon another. Though what really stood it apart from its noble aims were the grotesque nature of its concoctions and ingredients needed to make them. And certainly not for the faint of heart, aspiring mages would need human blood, excrement, and parts of the human brain. A recipe that stands out is for a mirror that gives visions of the future and control over the dead. To create this, you would again need blood mixed with sperm, tears from the eyes, earwax, spittle, urine and feces, and then hang it out on a bramble branch for 3 days. It's alarming to think that the people who studied this spellbook, much like the same way people nowadays study a chemistry textbook, not only used but managed to get hold of human blood so frequently as the amount needed for the recipes is sadly not just a few drops. Number 6. The Voynich Manuscript. Now that last one was strange, but for what it's worth it was structured and did at least seek spiritual power. It had its aims, and while its methods were at the very least questionable, it did seem to lead somewhere. But this next one is so mysterious and seemingly nonsensical it just had to be on this list. The Voynich Manuscript, discovered in 1912 by Wilfrid Voynich, is a 240-page book written mostly in an indiscernible language with diagrams scrawled on almost every page. Smaller segments of it are written in what appears to be Latin, but the majority of it is written in some other language unbeknownst to linguists around the world. Now while it's very strange, the author has clearly put an incredible amount of time into it. Carbon dating shows that it's an early 15th century manuscript, written on vellum, which is calf skin, that has drawings and etchings depicting anything from strange humanoid figures bathing in what seems to be green liquid, to diagrams of what seems to be an edited version of the zodiac chart, complete with unusual representation of plants and animals. Despite it being extremely strange, it's actually very skilled and artistic in nature. The dominant theory is that it was meant to serve as some kind of early medical encyclopedia to address concerns in early medieval medical practice, due to the assertion that the first part of the book is almost certainly herbal. But if that was the case, why wouldn't the author just have written it in his own language in order to make it accessible for medieval physicians? Many consider the text to be a cipher, due to the recurring shapes and patterns in the symbols. However, even a cryptography team from the National Security Association couldn't unlock the potential secrets encrypted in the text. All those who attempted to break the cipher agree that this is not just random scrawlings of lines and ink, and that there is something genuinely meaningful within the text due to the tightly grouped shapes and singular formations of its letters. Now who knows what's encoded in this mysterious manuscript? Documentation of early human experiments coded to hide the information from unwanted eyes? Well, until the cipher is decrypted, we'll just never know. Number 5. The Munich Manual of Demonic Magic. Let's take a darker look into the world of grimoires now. Also known as the Necromancer's Manual, this is the work of a 15th century Bavarian author who intended it to be a source book of spells dealing with the dead and evoking demonic entities. It is rumoured that reading a single word from this book could cause a physical reaction in a human being, and is said to be used even to this day for satanic rituals dealing with controlling human emotions or leveraging power. The grimoire deals with 3 primary forms of magic: illusionist, psychological, and divinatory. Those who play roleplay games may be familiar with these terms, especially since in games like Baldur's Gate you can create mages that specialise in each of these schools. The psychological magic in these games being referred to as enchantment. In this grimoire, illusionary spells are meant to trick victims into seeing things that aren't really there, like objects or doorways. Psychological spells are meant to influence emotions from the victim or exert control over them, and divinatory spells are used to extract information from time, be it in the future or past. Combine this with its detailed guide to casting black magic, this is certainly not a book you would want to pick up without truly knowing what you are getting into. Number 4. On the Writings of the Insane. Now this book isn't about magic or demons, nor is it a grimoire, but it may just be the creepiest book on this list, and also the most tragic. While it's not strictly written by G. Mackenzie Bacon, the medical superintendent at the Fulbourn Lunatic Asylum in 1870 in Cambridgeshire, England, he was the one who compiled all the original text into a book. Bacon noticed that one of the patients under his care spent much of his time hastily scribbling down what appeared at first glance to be nothing more than inane babble, and filling every space on his pages with complex diagrammatic writings and inane ramblings. After a while, Bacon sought a deeper understanding of both his patient and his writings, and while not all of them were intelligible, he described them as the drawings of a respectable artisan of considerable intelligence, who was committed after spending 3 years of melancholy mood. It seemed like the author was suffering from pretty severe depression, which actually becomes more and more apparent in his writings. These are just a few of the heart-wrenching lines written in English in his text. The magnetic weak point and the chronic melancholy of suppressed individuality, the point of endurance reached, desperation driven to the verge. It is difficult to read, and the images shown should let you see just how difficult it actually is. The thought of this man locked away in an asylum, somehow finding artistic freedom in creating his book, something which was supported by Bacon, is incredibly sad, but somehow there is a beauty in it. It was clear that he enjoyed this, and when another physician asked him to abandon his text, he replied, "Dear Doctor, to write or not to write? That is the question. Whether it is noble in the mind to follow the visit of the great Fulbourn with the chronic melancholy, expressions of regret withheld when he was here, that, as the fates would have it, was so little prepared to receive him, and to evince my humble desire to do honour this visit." Unfortunately, the joy that he found in his text, and Bacon taking such interest in his work, was not enough to overcome the depression inside him, and he later drowned himself in public. The unnamed patient was clearly incredibly tormented, so let me know what you think of his story and if you'd like to hear more. Number 3. Galdabroch. Now I'm a huge fan of Norse history and mythology, and I'm not just talking about Ragnar Lothbrok. Galdabroch is a famous Icelandic grimoire, reportedly written circa 1600, and is a small collection of around 50 spells and sigils. A spell is an incantation to evoke magical energy, to form and control, whereas a sigil, or a stave as it is referred to in Galdabroch, is a runic image that is inscribed to achieve a similar outcome. An example of this from Galdabroch would be Angurapi, which is a sigil that will be inscribed onto the end of a barrel to prevent leaking. There are many others, and some that seem to be more sinister, such as a sigil that you would inscribe upon the bedpost of a person you'd want to fall in love with, or a stave to be used with necropants. For those who are wondering, necropants are as bad as they sound. They are trousers made out of human skin that are said to give an endless supply of money out of the pockets. I'm struggling to find much user information about this book, and would love to hear your stories if you've read this, or better yet, if you've actually used any of the sigils. Number 2. The Oerlinda book. This is a 13th century text that descends from the Frisian region of the Netherlands, and proclaims to have documented historical events in a very specific timeline of 2194 BCE to 804 CE. Oerlinda reports that Europe was dominated in this time by a relatively peace-loving matriarchal civilization, who invented writing and kept incredibly detailed accounts of their history. Everything from the invention of writing to the history of a lost city that fell into the North Sea, that was called Atlanta. Does that sound familiar? Couple this with the fact that the book reports many catastrophic earth changes, such as huge volcanic eruptions, gigantic fissures, and rapid tidal changes. Many believe that the Oerlinda was the origin of the Atlantis legend. To those that know of Plato's description of Atlantis, there are some discrepancies. Plato spoke of Atlantis being situated in front of the Pillars of Hercules, which is said to be next to Gibraltar, at the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. Plato also described Atlantis as having a massive navy that dominated trade and war of that time, with it being an island nation of concentric circular harbours. Regardless, the two still do share some similarities. What do you think? Is it denoting the same legend of Plato, or is there another city that fell into the North Sea? Perhaps the two are both the same? Let me know what you think in the comments. Aurelian does have a darker side, and was extremely popular with Nazi occultists who tried to use the book to gain wisdom from within its historical writings, and so left the book's reputation a little tainted. Number 1. The Grand Grimoire. I've certainly left the best until last, as this has got to be one of the most chilling books out there. The Grand Grimoire, or Red Dragon, was discovered in 1750 under the Temple of Solomon, and is written in an early Aramaic or a form of Biblical Hebrew. Everything you know, or have heard about popularised books about demons or the dead, such as the book from the film Evil Dead, is said to be derived in some way to the Grand Grimoire. It was written by Honorius of Thebes, who was said to have been possessed by the devil himself. He called his work the Gospel of Satan, and said that Lucifer communed through him and wanted to spread the true word of God on earth. In this case, the true word of God was that the earth and everyone on it belonged to the devil, and that the story of the Ascension is a lie. It is said that the Grand Grimoire is the only true way to communicate with the dead, allowing those to get information from the past directly from the souls that have already passed on. The Grand Grimoire itself is again a composite of earlier work, written circa 1200. The rise of witchcraft is attributed directly to this book, as the early writings of Honorius came together to detail invocations of demonic entities. Anyone using this book will be dealing directly with some of the most powerful forces of hell, allowing the practitioners of dark magic to summon demons or trade human souls for deplorable and dark favours. Now you may think that this is a little far-fetched, but this purportedly is a genuine book and is considered to be the greatest threat to the faith of the world. So where is it? Well, the Catholic Church claims official ownership of the original text and is interred deep within the secret Vatican archives, unavailable to the public. It doesn't end there. The book is widely desired by practitioners of voodoo magic, who say that this book was hidden under the throne of King Solomon himself to tempt one of the most powerful and influential kings of that time to be the conduit to allow Satan to emerge from the infernal plane onto ours. All other forms of occult magic are said to be fake, and in this grimoire is said to be the only true form of demonic conjuration in the world. As I said before, when you read the incantations and rituals in this book, all of which are very detailed and precise, you are dealing directly with beings and demons of incredible power and malice, such as Pazazu, the demon behind the alleged exorcist haunting, and Baphomet the Tempter. The grimoire is also said to contain the only sketch of the face of Judas Iscariot, which is a terrifying thought in itself. So why does this book exist then? The original text is said to be impervious to fire and cannot be cut, torn, penetrated or harmed in any way. Now I don't know about you, but I'm glad that this is probably the most banned book in the world. So there you have 7 of some of the strangest and creepiest books ever written. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and if you'd like to see me cover a certain topic on this channel, please let me know in the comments below and I'll try to cover it. Once again, big thank you for taking the time to check out the video, and I'll try and do a new one every week for you. Good night and return to the library soon.